My name's Ethan. And the night everything started to slip, the night I stopped being sure of anything, was the night of Kate's boss's birthday party. She'd mentioned it a few times in passing, said it was going to be a big deal, and that I didn't need to come because it was mostly her coworkers. I remember raising an eyebrow at that. Usually, she'd want me by her side at events like that, even if just for moral support. But this time, it's work, she'd said, brushing her hair back and fixing her earrings. It's probably going to be boring. Boring. Sure. She left in a rush that evening, dressed in a navy blue cocktail dress that hugged her a little more tightly than her usual work clothes. Not that I minded, Kate always looked beautiful, but that night, she had gone the extra mile. Hair curled, eyeliner sharp, heels she hadn't worn in months. When I asked her why she was so dressed up, she shrugged and laughed it off. You know how these corporate people are, she said. We've got to look the part. I told her she looked great, and I meant it. But something about the way she rushed out the door made my stomach turn. I didn't have a reason. No proof. Just that gut feeling. The one you try to shake off because it sounds like jealousy or insecurity, and God forbid a man admits to either. She told me to pick her up around 11. Said she'd Uber there so she could have a few drinks and not worry about the drive back. I figured that was fair, so I planned my night around it. Watched a little TV, ordered in, drank a beer or two. Nothing too heavy. I wanted to be clear-headed when I saw her again. Traffic was light heading to the estate, and I ended up getting there 20 minutes early. The place was out on the edge of Atlanta. One of those gated properties with a long driveway and just enough uplighting to show off how much money someone had. I could hear the faint pulse of music even before I parked. People were still in full party mode. I walked through the side gate and figured I'd find her near the pool or the bar. I didn't mean to sneak around. I wasn't trying to spy. I just wanted to see her before she saw me. And that's when I heard her voice. Laughter first. Her laugh. God, I used to love that sound. Then words, half slurred from the wine, half seduced by whoever she was talking to. Mr. Raines is a true leader, she said, pausing with that dreamy kind of tone people use when they're caught up in someone. His vision, his energy. God. When he talks, the whole room shifts. There was a softness in her voice I hadn't heard in a long time. Admiration, yes, but more than that. Reverence. Flirtation. Maybe even longing. I stopped. Just stood there in the shadows by the stone wall, pretending like I hadn't heard it. Like it didn't sting. I told myself she was drunk, or maybe exaggerating for the sake of a story. That it didn't mean anything. That I was being stupid for reading into it. But in that moment, I felt something inside me tighten. It wasn't just the words. It was the tone. I peeked around the corner and saw them. Kate standing at the edge of the bar, glass of wine in hand, angled just a little too close to a tall, silver-haired man in a blazer with no tie. That had to be Raines. The man I'd heard about in passing but never met. The man who believed in her, who saw her potential. They weren't touching, but their body language told the whole story. Leaning in just enough. Smiling too easily. Her arm brushed his at one point, and she didn't pull away. He said something I couldn't hear, and she tilted her head back and laughed. That laugh hit me like a punch. Because I hadn't heard her laugh like that with me in a long time. Not like that. Not with her eyes sparkling and her hand resting on her hip the way she did when she felt confident. When she wanted to be seen. I could have walked up right then and interrupted. Could have made a joke or just let her know I was there. But I didn't. Instead, I backed away and walked back toward the car. I sat behind the wheel with the engine off, the radio on low. The quiet kind of music that just fills space. I watched people filter through the gates. Men in suits, women in heels, all of them a little too loud and a little too proud of themselves. Corporate types. The kind Kate had started spending more time with lately. She used to work with a small nonprofit, back when we first got married. Then she got offered a job in a bigger marketing firm, and everything changed. The hours, the clothes, the ambition. I supported it, of course. She was brilliant. She deserved more. But somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like we were moving forward, and more like she was moving forward and I was just trying to keep up. About 15 minutes later, she texted me. Hey babe, can you come get me? I'm outside by the fountain. I got out and headed toward her, putting on a smile I didn't feel. She was already waiting at the curb, coat draped over her shoulders, cheeks flushed from the alcohol and the Georgia heat. "Hey you," she said, sliding into the passenger seat with a breathless grin. "Sorry I made you wait." I shook my head. "You didn't. I just got here." She leaned over and kissed me. Quick, distracted, like she was checking a box. Her perfume was heavier than usual. It smelled expensive, like something she didn't wear for me. "How was the party?" I asked, pulling out of the driveway. She laughed. "Oh, boring. A bunch of corporate people talking about projections and synergy." She mimicked someone doing a stiff handshake and rolled her eyes. "Honestly, I'm just glad it's over." I nodded, pretending I hadn't seen the way she leaned into Rain's, pretending I didn't hear her say his name like it was the punchline to a private joke. I wanted to ask about him, about what he'd said that made her laugh like that. But I didn't. Instead, I asked if she was hungry. She said no. The rest of the ride home was quiet. She scrolled through her phone, responding to texts. I tried not to glance over and see who they were from. Every time her screen lit up, my heart skipped, like it was expecting to find proof. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But the unease stayed. It sat in the back of my throat, heavy and bitter, long after she fell asleep that night with her back turned to me. That was the night everything started to break. I just didn't know how far it would go. It started small, like a draft coming through a window you thought was closed. You feel it, but you don't do anything right away. You just tell yourself it's nothing. You convince yourself you're being paranoid, insecure, too sensitive. That's what I did, over and over. But something had shifted after that party. Kate didn't talk about it much. Usually, she'd come back from events with a list of stories: who wore what, who drank too much, who said something embarrassing. But this time, she was quiet, just said it was typical work stuff and changed the subject. She was always good at changing the subject. That following week, she seemed distracted. She'd pause mid-sentence like her mind was somewhere else. Conversations were shorter. Eye contact less frequent. She started wearing makeup even on her work-from-home days, something she never did before. And her wardrobe? Subtle changes. Tighter blouses, heels on days she used to wear flats, new perfumes showing up on the bathroom counter. Again, I told myself not to read into it. Maybe she was just stepping up her game professionally. Maybe it was about confidence. But even as I tried to believe that, something in my gut kept tugging at me. A quiet alarm that wouldn't shut off. Then came the late nights. At first, it was just once or twice a week. She'd text me around 6 saying, "We're swamped," or "We've got a deadline," and that she'd be home late. I tried to be understanding. I'd order takeout, leave her plate in the oven, and wait up. She usually got back around 9:30 or 10, worn out, sometimes half-heartedly apologetic. But then it became 3 times a week. Then 4. I remember one night specifically. It was a Wednesday. I had made dinner, nothing fancy, just pasta and garlic bread. I texted her around 7. "Still at work?" No reply. 8. "All good." Still nothing. She walked through the door a little after 10, smelling like wine and something floral. I asked if she'd eaten. She said yes, grabbed a glass of water, and disappeared upstairs. No kiss. No thank you. No explanation. It wasn't the silence that hurt. It was the ease of it. Like I was a roommate she barely noticed anymore. And then came his name. "Mr. Rains wants to meet with me one-on-one this week," she said one evening while brushing her hair. "Apparently there's a big opportunity coming up, and he thinks I'd be a good fit." I remember nodding, trying to play it cool. "That's good, right?" "Yeah, I think so." She didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. But inside, my stomach clenched. Rains again. He'd started showing up in conversations more often. Always professionally, never overtly inappropriate. But there was something about the way she said his name, almost like she was testing how it sounded out loud. "Mr. Rains said this, Mr. Rains thinks that." And I couldn't help but notice her smile whenever she talked about him. One night, we were sitting on the couch watching a show she used to love. Something light and mindless. She was scrolling on her phone, barely paying attention. I tried to cuddle up beside her, resting my hand gently on her thigh. She flinched barely, but enough. It was like she forgot who I was for a second. "Sorry," she said, forcing a smile. "You startled me." I pulled my hand away and mumbled something about being tired, but I couldn't stop thinking about the way she reacted. Like my touch didn't belong to her anymore. That weekend, she got a call while we were out at brunch. Her phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen, then flipped it face down without answering. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She nodded, setting her mimosa down. "Just work." But she didn't answer it, or check the message. She just left it there, screen down, silent. That became the new pattern. Her phone was always on silent, always face down. If she got a call, she'd excuse herself and step into another room. I wasn't trying to snoop, but when you live with someone for years, you notice changes. And the changes were everywhere. We stopped being int asterisk mate. At first, it was subtle. An excuse here, a long day there. But weeks passed, then a month, and we hadn't even kissed properly. We'd gone from passionate to polite, from playful to distant. I tried to talk about it once, asked if everything was okay between us. She just smiled, kissed my cheek, and said she was tired. Again, I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. She'd laugh at her phone sometimes, at messages I wasn't allowed to see. She started wearing lingerie to bed but wouldn't let me near her. One night, I asked if she wanted to go away for the weekend. Just the two of us. Clear our heads. She looked genuinely surprised. "Oh," she said, "I think I've got a strategy session that weekend." Another strategy session. I didn't say it out loud, but I thought it. With him, I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint tapping of her phone screen. Her face lit up in the dark by a message that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in months. I started questioning everything. Did I do something wrong? Did I become boring? Was I not enough anymore? I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that relationships ebb and flow, that we were just in a rough patch. But deep down, I knew. You can only lie to yourself for so long before the truth starts leaking through the cracks. And the truth was this. Something was happening. And I wasn't part of it. I started paying attention more, watching her routines, noting when she left and when she got home. I memorized her work schedule, looked up her company's events, even tracked some of her meetings online when they posted press releases. And then came the moment that changed everything. One afternoon, she mentioned she was meeting with Rains again, off-site this time. "He wants to talk in private," she said casually, pouring herself a second glass of wine. "Just a career discussion. No big deal." I nodded, but my hands were shaking under the table. That's when the idea hit me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. I needed to know. I needed the truth. Not suspicions. Not guesses. Truth. She had a handbag I gave her last year for her birthday. Inside the lining was a tiny tracking camera, one of those novelty gifts she never actually used. But I knew where it was and I knew how to activate it. So the night before her meeting, while she was in the shower, I found the camera, tested it, and carefully tucked it back into her bag. No wires, no blinking lights, just a silent witness. I didn't know what I expected to find. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that I was overthinking again, that I'd watch the footage and see her at a coffee shop, talking about quarterly targets or PowerPoint slides. But I also knew that this wasn't about work anymore. I didn't sleep the night before. I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the fan overhead. Every so often, I'd glance over at Kate. She was fast asleep, peaceful, breathing slow, her face turned away from me. And I wondered, how does someone sleep so easily when they're lying to you? The camera in her bag was running. A small lens, no bigger than a shirt button, stitched discreetly into the seam. I tested it twice, once in the kitchen, once in the living room. The audio wasn't great, but the video feed worked just fine. It would record everything until the battery died or I shut it off manually. She left the house just after noon the next day. Said she had a one-on-one with Mr. Rains to discuss a new project. Could be a promotion? She told me with this glowing, practiced smile. Keep your fingers crossed. I forced a smile back, but something in me felt hollow. She kissed my cheek as she grabbed her keys. I barely felt it. My stomach churned as I watched her walk out the door. As soon as I heard the engine fade down the street, I went straight to my laptop. I had synced the camera to my device, and it didn't take long before the stream loaded. It was grainy, shaky at times, but clear enough to make out where she was. The first few clips were ordinary. She was driving, humming along to the radio, checking her hair at red lights, then parking, walking through a hotel lobby. Not an office, a hotel. My pulse started thumping in my ears. She stepped into an elevator. I could only see the ceiling light and hear the ding of each passing floor. My palms were sweating. I reached for a glass of water and barely managed to get it to my lips without spilling. The elevator stopped on the 6th floor. She walked down the hallway, heels clicking, bags swaying at her side. Then she paused outside a room. 612. Her hand lifted, and for 1 second, she just stood there, like she was hesitating. Then the door opened. It was him, Rains. Gray hair, clean-shaven, tall. Wearing a navy dress shirt with the sleeves rolled just enough to show off his watch and tan forearms. He smiled at her the way I used to, the kind of smile that says, "I'm glad you're here. I've been thinking about you." She smiled back. That version of her, the one I saw in the camera, was different. She lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. That version of her still laughed like she was 19. Still touched her hair when she was nervous. Still beamed when someone looked at her like she mattered. Except it wasn't me she was shining for anymore. They stepped inside the room. The door closed. The camera stayed on. The view was mostly obstructed, the inside of her bag facing down against the arm of a chair or something, but the audio kept going. Muffled, but enough. I turned up the volume. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear it, but I couldn't stop myself. First, it was small talk. Jokes about traffic. Complaints about someone at the office. Then a pause. "You always smell amazing," he said, voice low. She laughed, soft and nervous. "You're trouble, you know that?" He chuckled. "Only if you want me to be." I froze. Then I heard movement. Fabric brushing. The sound of heels being slipped off. More laughter. A whisper I couldn't make out, and then quiet. But not the kind of quiet that leaves room for doubt. The kind of quiet that's full of breath and skin and closeness. A pause thick enough to tell the whole story without a single word. That's when I shut the laptop. I didn't need to see any more. I didn't want to. My chest felt tight, like something inside had caved in. Like all the air had been ked from the room. She had been lying. For how long? I didn't even know. But there it was. Proof. Undeniable. Unforgiving. I sat there for a while, staring at nothing. My hands were numb. Couldn't cry. Couldn't yell. It was like my body hadn't caught up to what I'd just seen. I felt empty. But not the peaceful kind of empty. The hollow kind. The kind that echoes. Eventually, I hit save recording. I didn't even know why. Maybe because a part of me thought she'd still try to deny it. Or maybe because I needed to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined it. I slid my chair back and stood slowly. My legs felt like stone. I walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stood there staring at the shelves like I was going to find answers next to the orange juice. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I just stood there. I thought about everything we'd built. 7 years of marriage, 2 apartments, 3 Christmas trees, and a house we repainted twice. I thought about Sunday mornings with pancakes, and the way she used to laugh when I couldn't fold fitted sheets. I thought about how I used to kiss her shoulder while she made coffee. And then I thought about her in that hotel room, smiling for someone else. I finally sat down on the couch and stared at the wall. The silence in the house felt different now. Before, it was just uncomfortable. Now it was cruel. Loud. I didn't text her. Didn't ask when she was coming home. I didn't want to hear her voice. Not when it would still be carrying his scent. Not when it might lie to me again. A few hours passed. The sun started to set. I pulled the blinds halfway and stood there, watching the orange light stretch across the living room floor. It was beautiful in a way, quiet and soft. indifferent to the war inside me. Around 7, she texted. Meeting went long. Grabbing a bite before I head home. Love you. I stared at that message for a long time. Love you. Those 2 words felt like poison. Like someone trying to bandage a bullet wound with a post-it note. I didn't respond. What could I say? I stayed quiet, kept my hands folded, closed my eyes and listened to the clock ticking in the kitchen. Every second a reminder that something had broken, and no amount of pretending could glue it back together. When she came home, I was already in bed. Lights off, back turned. She didn't say much, just whispered, "Hey," and slipped under the sheets beside me. She didn't try to touch me, didn't kiss my shoulder. And I didn't sleep. Not a single minute. I didn't confront her. Not the next morning. Not that night. Not the day after that. I said nothing. It's strange what silence can do. It fills up a house faster than noise ever could. It's louder than shouting, more violent than any argument. It wraps around you, clings to your skin, turns every corner into a mirror. She noticed it too. I know she did. The morning after the hotel meeting, she acted normal. Too normal. She made coffee, asked if I wanted toast, commented on the weather like it wasn't sitting between us like a loaded G*N on the kitchen table. I said, "No thanks." And that was it. My words were measured, neutral, like I was speaking to someone else's wife. She gave me a small smile, the kind you give to strangers in elevators, and went back to checking emails on her phone. I watched her thumb dance over the screen, perfectly composed, like she hadn't shattered something inside me just hours before. I left the house that afternoon without telling her where I was going. Packed a small bag, just clothes, phone charger, my laptop, and drove north. The road hummed beneath me, steady and indifferent. The further I got from Atlanta, the easier it was to breathe. Charlotte wasn't planned. I didn't book a hotel, didn't map it out. I just knew I needed distance, space, something that didn't smell like her perfume or echo with memories of us. I called an old friend, Matt. We hadn't spoken much in the last few years, life pulling us in different directions, but he picked up on the second ring like no time had passed at all. "Ethan," he said, surprised. "Man, it's been a minute." "Yeah," I said. "I was wondering if you had a couch I could crash on for a couple nights." He didn't ask why. Didn't need to. "Come through," he said. "Garage fridge is still full of beer. You like IPAs now? Or are you still a sad domestic kind of guy?" I laughed. First real laugh I'd had in a while. The drive was quiet. I didn't play music. I didn't make phone calls. I didn't check my messages. Even though I could feel Kate's name buzzing in my pocket more than once. I just let the road carry me. When I got to Matt's place, he met me in the driveway with a sideways grin. Same guy as always. Faded jeans, hoodie, and that signature mix of sarcasm and sincerity. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel like it too." We didn't talk much that first night. Just sat in his garage with the heater buzzing and old rock music playing in the background. He handed me a beer, and we watched the condensation bead along the glass like it meant something. Eventually, he broke the silence. "You're not the type to run," he said. "I didn't run," I replied. "I just paused." He nodded like that made sense. "Well, I'm glad you're here." So was I. We spent the next few days like that. Quiet mornings, lazy afternoons, the occasional conversation that didn't press too hard. He asked what happened once, and I told him just enough. "She cheated." He winced. "Damn. Yeah. You sure?" "Yeah. Saw it." He didn't say sorry. He didn't offer some hallmark advice about forgiveness or fighting for love. He just cracked another beer and said, "So what now?" That question haunted me the rest of the day. What now? I didn't know. I wasn't ready to go back, but I also couldn't live in limbo forever. I walked the streets of Charlotte like a ghost, drifting past restaurants and couples holding hands, wondering how many of them were just pretending like we had. I sat in a park one afternoon, watched kids play on the swings, and felt this strange grief for the future I thought I'd have. I had imagined Kate and me with kids someday, backyard birthdays, movie nights with popcorn and pillow forts. That vision used to keep me warm. Now it just made me feel foolish. On the third night, Matt said something that hit different. We were sitting out back, watching the sky turn purple behind the treetops. "You already know it's over," he said. "But you need to end it yourself." I didn't respond right away. Just stared at the horizon like the answer might be out there. "I'm serious, man," he continued. "You're not here to figure out if she's worth it. You already saw the truth. You're just here to figure out if you're brave enough to let go." Those words echoed in my chest long after he went back inside. That night, I laid on the couch, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, it felt different. I wasn't stuck in the past. I was standing at a crossroads. I could go back and pretend. Live in the same house, eat at the same table, fall asleep next to a woman who knew how to lie with a straight face. Or I could accept what I saw. Accept that something died in that hotel room, and nothing would bring it back. I didn't sleep much, but when I did, my dreams weren't about her. They were about stillness, quiet. I drove back the next morning. Didn't text her. Didn't warn her. Just packed my bag, thanked Matt, and hit the road again. I felt calmer than I expected. No anger, no fear. Just a strange kind of peace, like I was walking out of a fog. The house looked the same when I pulled into the driveway. Lights on, blinds half closed, her car parked neatly in its usual spot. I stepped inside and was met with silence. Kate was in the kitchen, phone in hand, scrolling. She looked up, surprised to see me. "Ethan," she said, breathless. "I didn't know if you were." "I'm not here to talk about it," I interrupted. Her face fell, but she didn't argue. "I'm not here to save anything," I added. "I just came back to say goodbye." The words didn't come from a place of spite. They weren't shouted or sharpened. They were calm, final. She blinked, swallowed, set her phone down. I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, and began packing the rest of my things. She followed, lingering in the doorway like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to speak. She didn't cry, not yet, but I think she knew then that she had used up the last of whatever rope she had left. She didn't fight me that first day back. I think that's what stood out the most. No yelling, no frantic apologies, no tears, just silence. Like she was trying to gauge how much I already knew. Like she was deciding which version of the truth she could get away with. I slept in the guest room that night. Didn't unpack. Just dropped my duffel by the door and collapsed onto the couch-turned bed. Staring at the ceiling I helped paint 2 years ago. I could hear her moving around upstairs. Closet doors, drawers, then footsteps, then quiet. That silence stretched into the morning. She made breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee with oat milk like I liked it. She even cut the toast diagonally, the way I always did when I made it. It was the kind of breakfast you make for someone you're trying to win back. I didn't touch it. She watched me from across the table. Her face was calm, but her hands betrayed her. Fingers tapping, fidgeting with the edge of her mug. "I'm glad you're home," she said softly. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure if you'd come back. Still nothing. She swallowed hard. "Ethan, can we please talk?" I met her gaze for the first time in days. "You want to talk? Fine." She nodded like she was bracing for impact. "I know," I said. The words hung in the air. Her face shifted. Relief? Fear? Couldn't tell. "Know what?" "Don't do that," I said calmly. "Don't play stupid. I know about the hotel. About you and Rains." Silence. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She blinked rapidly, then tried to speak. "It's not what," she started. "Please." I cut her off. "Don't insult me with that line." She looked down. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "How did you?" I tapped my chest pocket. "You remember that bag I gave you last year? There was a gift inside it you never used." Her eyes widened. She understood now. First she laughed. Not out of amusement, more like disbelief. The kind of laugh that says, "I didn't think you'd ever have the guts to look." Then came the next phase. Denial. "We didn't do anything," she said quickly. "It was emotional, maybe, but it wasn't Ethan, it wasn't physical until recently, and even then, I raised a hand. I watched you walk into the hotel room. I heard enough. The color drained from her face. I didn't want it to happen, she whispered. But it did, I said. She nodded. Yeah. That was all it took. One word. One admission. And something in me just shut off. Not in anger, not even sadness, just finality. Like a circuit breaker flipped. I'm filing, I said. Her breath hitched. What? I'm filing for divorce. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. Ethan, no, please. Please don't. I messed up. I know I did. But we can fix this. I'll cut it off with him. I already did. It's over. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not the woman I married, not the friend I used to trust, but someone else entirely. Someone I couldn't reach anymore. You didn't just mess up, Kate. You dismantled everything we built and didn't even bother to tell me. She started crying. The tears came fast, but they didn't move me the way they used to. I think I'd already grieved what we were. This was just cleanup. I was confused, she sobbed. You don't know what it was like. You were always stable, calm. You had your routines, your structure. I felt like I was disappearing. So you slept with your boss. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I didn't plan it, but you let it happen. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore, she shouted, her voice raw now. Every time I tried, it felt like I was speaking into a void. You were always busy, always focused on work or bills or fixing things. I needed someone who saw me. And you think I didn't? Her silence was answer enough. I stood up. My hands were steady. My voice was low. I saw you, Kate, every day. I saw you tired. I saw you bored. I saw you unhappy. And I asked you over and over if you were okay. You lied to me with a straight face. She broke down, fully this time, dropped to her knees, sobbing into her hands. Please don't leave me, she said. We can go to therapy. I'll do anything. I didn't speak right away. I wanted to tell her how much she'd hurt me, how deep the betrayal cut. But there was nothing left to say that would change anything. I'm not leaving you, Kate, I said. You left me a long time ago. I'm just catching up. We signed the papers 2 weeks later. No lawyers. No fight over property. We split the house sale. We didn't have kids, and thank God for that. I don't know how I would have explained this to a child. The courthouse was quiet, sterile. She wore all black, like it was a funeral. Maybe it was. She didn't say much, just kept her head down, eyes red, hair pulled back like she was trying to hold herself together. We sat across from each other in silence. The clerk asked us to confirm our agreement, and we both said yes in voices barely above a whisper. And that was it. Years together reduced to a stack of papers and a few mumbled confirmations. Afterward, we stood outside. There was a light drizzle, of course there was. She reached out to touch my arm, and for the briefest second, I thought I might let her. But I stepped back. I'm sorry, she said, voice cracking. I know. You were a good man. I nodded. Still am. She looked like she wanted to say more, but I turned before she could. I didn't look back. I walked to my car with the divorce folder under my arm, sat down behind the wheel, and let out a long breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I felt empty, but I also felt calm. For the first time in months, I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to wait for another lie, another late night, another excuse that didn't add up. The chaos was over. She said I'd changed. She was right. You'd think divorce would be the end of the story, but with Kate, it never was. A week after the papers were signed, she showed up at my door. Tears. Apologies. I miss you, she said. It was a breakdown. I said nothing. She left. Then came the texts. You never fought for us. Followed by, I still love you. Followed by, I'll ruin you if you show that video. Threats, guilt, regret on repeat. It was like she didn't know who to be without the drama. But I did. I knew exactly who I was becoming. Someone finally done living inside her chaos. I moved to Savannah, took a job teaching history at a quiet college near the coast. clean air, empty beaches, silence that didn't feel heavy. One day, she sent a letter. If you don't come back, I'll show everyone that video of you crying. Let them see what a weak man you are. I didn't even flinch. I tucked it away in a drawer. Weak? No, I had stayed. I had tried. But letting go? That took strength. I didn't lose her in that hotel room. I lost her long before. But in the silence she left behind, I finally found myself.